Coach Sinceri, who you
Absolutely.
coached together with at Alabama.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what it's been like to be, having him on the staff again?
Well, Sal and I have coached together at Alabama. We coached together at Florida State also. So we were actually national champions together at Florida State and at Alabama. So when I was able to, get him to be able to come out there as our defensive line coach, he brings so much experience to our staff. He's a very knowledgeable coach. Coaches very hard, very passionate, and our players love him. So we're excited to have him. He's going to be a big asset to us.
On a similar note, I talked to Brent Davis-Wayne's high school coach, Zachary Hilbers, and he said that Sinceri went out there and they just sat in the classroom and Sinceri was showing, and Brandon had a block like Will Anderson Jr.
Oh, yeah.
It's just things like that that make the Buffs recruiting so well. And I think if you could pinpoint it, what is so successful about the Buffs recruiting and the message that you guys try to convey?
I think one thing, you've got to be able to relate to people in order to recruit. And then you've got to be able to show them, listen to what their goals are. And when I know what your goals are, then if I can show you how I can reach your goals, then you're going to be attracted to that. And I think all of our coaches do a wonderful job, of being able to do that. So it's about creating relationships. It's about, it takes a village, like we say, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to recruit one. It's not just one person.
Coach, I have an Adams question. Nick Williams is also coaching with Sal.
Right.
They talked about each other a little bit in the spring. How have you seen that dynamic? Sal's been coaching so long, Nick is new.
It's great. And, first of all, Nick has a great amount of respect for Sal. And I think Nick understands that, hey, I can learn even more from this guy. And Nick is a great young football coach. Great young coach. He's going to be sitting up here one day. And, but I think anytime you got a guy that you can learn from like that, it's like when I was working for Coach Saban. And I'm working with Coach Prime. I got the best corners coach, best guy that ever played the position. And now he gets to be on the staff with me. I get to learn from him. That's good. You never get too old to stop learning. So I think that dynamic is going to be good, and they're competitive. And, I think your players play like your personality.
I'm just curious how Miles Slusher is coming along.
Miles is doing a good job. I thought he had a good spring. He was banged up a little bit for part of it. So far this summer, workouts have been going good. We're anxious to see, if he carries that over into the fall. But he has the ability to be a really good player. Got great short area quickness, very instinctive. Got good ball skills. So, anxious to see what he can do.
I know we talked about Demoy too. Is he healthy and working out this summer?
Who's that?
Demoy Kennedy.
Yes, Demoy's doing everything. He's been cleared. He's running. He's doing everything he has to do right now.
You were named the Recruiter of the Year on 24/7 Sports last year. Now that you're in a coordinator role, is it tougher to have as big of an impact on recruiting?
Listen, we recruit just the same. There's no doubt. I've always felt like, and I do believe, no matter what your position is, you got to be recruiting. Sometimes you have years where you have more guys in your area that are higher profile guys. And if you do your job and you get those guys, then you get the Recruiter of the Year. But there were a lot of people that helped me that were involved in recruiting those guys. And for me to sit here and say that it was just me, that's not fair and that's not true. But yes, does it affect you? It probably does because you can't go out on Fridays because you're with your team before you play on Saturday. Some of those little things make it a little more difficult, but recruiting is the lifeblood, and no matter what your position is, you got to make sure that you're doing that all the time.
Coach, I love how you mentioned Nick Saban and some of the qualities that Coach Prime has that are similar. I also can't help but notice, I know you didn't work for him directly at Florida State, but Coach Bobby Bowden certainly has been a big influence on him. Do you see kind of a combination of those two?
Absolutely. When you listen to Coach Bowden was strong in his convictions. What he believed in, he didn't care. He was staunch on that. I think that's where Coach Prime gets a lot of that from. We all learn from people that we've worked with and that we work for, that we play for. You take all of those things and that makes you who you are. I don't think there's a football coach in the country that made something up. They say they did, but they got it from somebody else. So I think the way we're all influenced is through the people that we work with and who we've been around.
Coach, sorry, regarding the big guys up front, first of all, how's Taj Olsen doing with his health, and then who else has kind of impressed you?
Taj has come back. He's full go also. Shane's still playing really good. He looks really good right now. Derek McClendon has done a good job. Amari's done a good job. He can really move. We're trying to think of all those guys. We got so many new guys up there and so many numbers right now that that's what we were trying to do, is create depth up there and create depth with guys that can move. Because you're not going to play for Coach Prime unless you move. And we don't want the slower guys. We want to make sure that we, got guys that can create havoc.
Who within the freshman class has really impressed you out of those 17 guys?
Well, all of those guys have to a point. Now, they have their good days and they have their bad days. I think, Kamani's done some really good things. But he's got a ways to go before, his body's ready to play. And when I say that, it may be 2 weeks, it may be 4 weeks. Our job is to get him ready to play. But all of those guys have shown flashes at being, they've had their days. And that's the way it is as a freshman. You're going to have your days, and then you're going to have your days where you think, I might want to go home. This might not be for me.
What made you guys want to go get some of those balls out of the transfer portal from Washington? How does he fit in your defense as well?
Well, first of all, I remember him out of high school and what he did. And I sat down and had a long talk with him and listened to him about his goals and what he wanted to accomplish. And he's been one of the more impressive guys that we've had in. In fact, he only got in. He got in a little bit later than some of the guys because he had a class to finish up. When he came in, I thought he was as lean as I'd seen him probably in the last 2 years. And watching him move around out there, he looks like what I remembered out of high school.
I was going to say, what caught your eye out of high school on film? Because I know he was kind of a flashy guy. What caught your eye?
Yeah, well, anytime a guy can bend like that and move, he can create power. He's one of those guys that can create speed to power, and he can be one of those type of pass rushers. And I think he can be hard for tight ends to handle, when he's in the right mindset. But he's done a good job. I've been really pleased with him since he's been there. Coach, sometimes like we mentioned earlier, sometimes a change is good. It just is good for people.
Coach, you mentioned Derek McClendon earlier about somebody that stuck out to you. Obviously, he's one of a handful of Florida State transfers you guys have brought in. Is it just kind of fitting with your background, with Coach Bruce's background, obviously Coach Prime's background, that you guys have added so many former Florida State players to your roster as well, especially on defense?
Yeah, and a couple of those guys, of course, I had a relationship with Travis J. I'd started, in fact, I think I offered him when he was a freshman or a sophomore. I was still coaching at Florida State. And I recruited him at 2 or 3 other places that I was at. So I think watching, having relationships, having ties with those guys definitely gave us a better opportunity to get them.
Coach, did you have much of a relationship with Sean Lewis before? I know that Kent State gave Kansas a couple of years ago, but I was just wondering, have you been impressed with him?
Absolutely. Well, Sean and I went against each other when I was at Florida State. He was offensive coordinator at Syracuse. So they always did a great job offensively. The tempo offense is unbelievable. play fast. He makes things, he makes things hard to defend, and he's always done a really good job with the quarterbacks. I mean, their team at Kent State last year probably gave Georgia more fits than any other offense in the country last year.
Obviously, Jimmy Horn was really impressive in the spring, being the first guy to earn a number. But I mean, people don't forget that his former teammate at USF, Xavier Rivers, joined you guys as well, and actually had more production than he did the last couple of years. How impressive has he been so far for you guys?
Both of those guys are impressive. I mean, both those guys can play. And the thing about it, I think when you get the ball to them in space, that's what I like about where we're at offensively. Shador's got some weapons to get the ball to, gets them to him in space, and gets them out there where these guys can go.
What are you seeing out of the running back room, all McCaskill and Cavazos?
Both of them bring, they're unique in their styles. Both of them are hard to tackle. Smoke's a little bit, more compact, but he's powerful. A little bit lower center of gravity. But all of those running backs have a chance to be really good, and we get the ball to them in space. They're going to be hard to get down.
When we were talking with you earlier, you mentioned the player-led practices. On the defensive side, how much has Levanta Bentley been a leader in those, and how much do you rely on him in terms of relaying and installing the defense with the new guys?
Very, very much so. He's done a good job of coming in and learning and trying to be that leader, and he picks up concepts very well. So he's done a really nice job.
How's Jordan Dominic doing, and how big of a season do you think he can have?
I don't like getting into the predictions of how guys will do, because what you do is you put expectations on them instead of just letting them play. I don't want him to feel like I got to get the sack total that I had at Arkansas. Now you start doing things that you shouldn't do. But I like the way he's developed. I think we're doing a little more with him in space than what they did at Arkansas, which I think is going to help him, later on. I think it'll help him create value for himself. But I'm anxious to watch him play.
Coach, as far as Travis Hunter, his need for to be out there every down, I'm sure he's a good enough athlete, wants to play every down. Is there a little tug of war between you and the offense? Like, hey, I need to stop. I need him in there at DB.
No, I mean, Coach Brown's going to handle that, and I think he'll manage that the way it needs to be managed. And Coach understands. Coach is a football guy. He gets it. He knows when we need him. But I do think it's important for us to bring these other guys along, at corner that can help us, because the quicker we can get them ready to play, the better off we're going to be.
Coach, in the spring, Sal gave us a pizza place that he found and that he loves already. Is there a place Charles Kelly likes to go eat in Boulder?
In Boulder, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of places to eat in Boulder. I mean, I love. I mean, there's so many places. What is it? Steakhouse 316, Pasta J's. I like Barchetta's. Is what Sal's. I like hitting that on Friday afternoon. I live in Longmont. I found that this Goodfellas Diner in Longmont. It's all right. I mean, it's like the old Mel's Diner, where you walked in and saw Flo. I'm like, all right, this is pretty cool.